So far, all the calls that we've seen worked the same. One player captures the stone, the other player looks for a threat and recaptures the call. But in fact, there is a whole zoo of different calls out there. Some of these beasts are quite rare, and perhaps you will never meet them in real life. But some others are pretty common. It is important for you to know how to treat them, what to feed them, and which of them have especially sharp teeth. Let's take a look at an approach call. Can this group of white make life? For sure, the first move white would play would be capturing black's stone. But then black plays a call threat, and if white doesn't answer, can white live? If white connects, white has only one eye. So white's only chance is to play another move, but then black can play the call again. Now white needs to find the call threat, and basically white needs to win the call for the second time. If you are black in this situation, you are lucky because you need to win this call just once. The position is very comfortable for you. In fact, there can be even more approach moves. Here, white would need to fill all these liberties to finally win the call. Remember, you don't have to win this call right now. Just leave it like this. Let your opponent play the approach moves. And you just keep waiting, playing normal moves. If you eventually win the call anyway, then the opponent's approach moves will become useless. And oftentimes, even if you lose the call, the moves that you played in the meantime will be worth more than the life of this group. So let your opponent fixate on the call and spend his moves there. On the other hand, if you happen to be in a disadvantageous position in an approach call, then don't get too emotionally involved in the plan of reviving your group. It's easy to spend moves there and then get nothing out of the fight. If you really want to get something out of it, you need to approach the fight very carefully. Don't play the approach moves too early. Rather, wait for the time when you are sure that you have enough threats to go through all the steps of a call. There is another type of call called two-stage call. Let's look at the following example. In this position, there is a call, and if white manages to win it, then white will live. However, if black wants to kill white, then black needs to win the call once, and then black cannot connect. It would be a self-atari. So the only thing black can do is to start a new call. So we get to the second stage of a call. Only if black manages to win this second call, black kills white's group. And how about white? Now, if white manages to find a big enough call threat, white takes the call, and to live with the group, white will need to start the next call in the corner. The two-stage call works like an hourglass. White starts the first call, and while black plays their threats, white could keep playing the call so the sand is running in one direction. But if at one point white responds to black's threat, then the black player rotates the hourglass and the sand starts going in the other direction. Whoever is persistent enough to go all the way will eventually win the call. We say that this call has two stages. This one, which is advantageous for white, and this one, which is advantageous for black. That's why it's called a two-stage call. There is one more call beast which you might have seen in your games. Or maybe not. It's even more puzzling than the previous example. Let's take a look. If white wants to make life, white cannot connect because then this is a Nakade shape and white is dead. So the only option for white would be to play Atari, but then black starts the call and white needs to find a call threat. But in fact, white has an even better option. Instead of playing the Atari, white could keep it like this and just not touch the position. If black ever wants to kill white's group, first black would need to capture the call, white will again play elsewhere, and then black cannot connect because then it's seki and white's group is alive. So if black wants to kill it, black would need to play another move, and then white takes the ko first, and black is the one who needs to find the first ko threat. This is an unusual type of ko that neither player wants to start, because whoever starts it will need to look for the first ko threat. It's a bit like an approach ko for both players. It is called a 10,000-year ko. The name is translated from the Asian languages. In Chinese it's called Wan Nian Jie, and in Japanese it's called Mannen ko. Oh, you can see that they are the same characters. This character means 10,000, which is a common measure unit in the Far East. The name of this ko is a metaphor. It's a ko which will stay open on the board for a very long time, because no one wants to start it, as they would need to look for the first ko threat. It sometimes happens that there are two kos on the board. You might try to find both of them, but you cannot ever win both. If you capture one of them, then the opponent will capture the other one. And it might sometimes happen that both of the kos are connected with one group. Let's take a look at this example. White's group is in a bad situation. This eye is false, and this one is also false. White's only hope would be to try to make two eyes with this move, but then black will capture the ko. White might play a ko threat, and when black answers, white will recapture the ko, but then black can just capture the other ko. White cannot ever win both kos, so white's group is unconditionally dead. It is so annoying when your group dies in double ko. It seems that you are not yet dead and you can fight a ko, but in fact your fight is futile. However, there is one advantage of this unfortunate condition. Let me show you what I mean. This is a game which I played against a Chinese professional on the European Go Congress. White tried to invade my territory on the left, and in the end we got this position. How do you think? What is the status of white's group? It might look similar to a seki, but if white connects this ko, then black can just atari and white's group will be captured. Instead of playing this move, white could try to capture the ko to remove black's outside liberty, but then black will take this ko. And if white doesn't fight it, and white connects, then black also connects, and white's group is dead, because white has no eye and black has an eye. So this is a double ko. In this position, white could try to find a threat and take the ko back, but then black will take this ko. White is dead here. So what is the advantage of having a double ko that I talked about? White could do really audacious things. For example, in this position, I played this atari, and usually white cannot fight this ko and white would just connect the stone. But in this position, white took my stone. Yes, black has a lot of ko threats. For example, this move, and black could take back, hoping that at one point white connects. But white will never do it, because white has an infinite number of ko threats. Whatever ko threat black plays, white can simply answer, and then use the double ko as a ko threat. One of the most common kos is a half-point ko. In the ko zoo, it's a very small animal and its natural habitat is the late endgame. It's a ko that you are playing for the sole purpose of capturing a single opponent's stone. Imagine that this is a late endgame situation. Playing this ko is really not worth much. That's why this is the last thing which you would do in the endgame. But it's a great opportunity to practice finding ko threats and fighting ko in general. Oh, by the way, this name, half-point ko, is so annoying. Everyone keeps calling it that, but actually taking the ko is worth 2/3 of a point. One day I will make a course, Endgame for Nerds, and I'll explain that to you. We saw examples of various strange kos. These are the most common ko beasts which can appear in your games. In fact, the Ko zoo is larger than you can imagine. There are many more different animals, including some dangerous beasts. We saw a double Ko, but what about a triple Ko or a quadruple Ko? Did you know that there are some crazy Ko researchers who artificially invent even more weird Ko beasts? Seriously, I was not aware of it until recently. You can Google Ko Beast Sensei's library. But for your actual games, the Kos that you saw in this lesson are enough.
By the way, you can also watch these lessons on our platform, gomagic.org. Except there, you'll watch them with interactive quizzes right within the lessons and practical exercises right after them. And if you enjoy watching these Go videos and you don't want to miss others like this one, go smash that like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and this is Go Magic.